Okay, Demonadra. Diamondra. Okay, e4. Let's see. How about a Alekhine's defense? Did a French defense and a Scandinavian recently. And he pushes on the normal response. Kicks it again. So let's see if we get one of those chase variations where they chase the knight all over the board. Okay, that's pretty normal. That's the way I play it. Put those 3 pawns up there, and then he can go for the 4 pawns attack. That's kind of the most aggressive way, although a little bit dubious. Not dubious, but or this way, which is the most. That's the way I play it too. It gives white a little bit of an edge in the center, so it's the most. I don't know, effective way to play for white, I guess, because because white can get a little more space in the center without taking a lot of risk. The F4 push is the most aggressive way of playing, but it gives white some chances. It gives black some chances. So I always thought this pin was a little bit interesting. Hey, just blocks it. And then let's get this knight out. So he hasn't exactly built up a huge center. It's just a small center, but I still want to put a little pressure on it. And if he goes there, let's see, if I take the knight first and he takes my knight, I could take his bishop, I could take the pawn, I could take his queen, I could take my rook, I take back. So that means I can take his knight, takes my knight, I take his bishop, yeah, he's got to keep taking. So he has to take the bishop back, then I can move my knight to I can move my knight to e5 without it getting traded. If I go knight to e5 right away, he takes. I could take the bishop. And let's see, can he go somewhere with the knight? He could go here attacking my queen. I take his queen, he takes my queen. Gets complicated. Here, let's try this line. Let's give up that light squared bishop in exchange for a perch for my knight here. And a tempo, because he'll probably want to reposition that bishop rather than give up the bishop pair. And also, no, he doesn't mind giving up the bishop pair. He just defended the pawn. I was going to say the c-pawn is hanging, so bishop to e2 is probably what I would have played there. So let's castle. And is there a way of putting more pressure on that bishop? Maybe offer to trade off this bishop. And if he doesn't take it, then I'll bring my queen out to f3 there. He can avoid the trade by going bishop here. Oh, he goes there with the knight. Okay, so he doesn't have the bishop pair advantage anymore. And I can bring this knight back into the game. So this should be about even, I would guess. He's not going to be able to pin this knight when it goes to f6. He decides to save his bishop, but it's not the world's greatest bishop. It's behind these light squared pawns here. And I would welcome this trade because it is a well-posted knight there. That's a good knight. And so now I've got a good knight. And he's got a bad bishop. That's the plan. So, okay, he's trying to make my knight not so good. Where can I bounce around to? I could go to g6. From g6, I could go to h4 and then maybe to f5. Maybe over here to d4 at some point. The other way of rerouting it is to come back here to d7 to c5. Look out on these light squares. That also has some appeal, but he might just play b4 there, and then what do I do? So let's route around on the king side. And I'm not necessarily going to make all those knight moves at once. I just want to have a some way to develop it. And I want to put a rook on the open file next. That's probably my next best way to play here. So piling up on the E file here. Maybe even rook to. Well, that's interesting. So he doesn't think that's such a great piece either. Okay, let's. Put the rook here and bring the other rook over to support it. So if he gives up the bishop for the knight, I will take with the pawn. That stops his pawn from coming forward. I have ideas of queen here, check maybe. This game looks like it's kind of dissolving though. He's gotten rid of all the minor pieces, and how does he get play? How do I get play? Like I said, there's this check on this diagonal. That's the only idea I see here, and that just leads to trades. Well, let's check if the trades are good. Check here, queen takes, rook takes. It's his move. He could put a rook on the open file. I could bring my rook to the second rank. He could lift his rook to the second rank. I could check. His king goes to the second rank. I mean, it all looks fine. That all looks fine for white. Is there other ways to invade with the queen? Maybe put the rook here. That doesn't really help. Let's try and create some pawn weaknesses here. This may be my weakness, but we'll see. Maybe creating a pawn weakness for myself. I didn't do anything. I got his king off. I was thinking, I would be maybe in a little bit of trouble if he just doubled his rook up against that pawn. So now I can do this move, and it has some point because it supports this pawn coming forward. If I can get a passed pawn, that's a little something. And the queen check is possible. It drives my king over here. But everything is protected, so I'm not too worried. And yeah, so now I have a passed pawn. It's isolated, but it's passed. And if his queen goes too far afield, I can bring my rook in with check. So the check down here is kind of a double-edged move. And let's see, I could bring my queen to c6. Queen c6 defends against the check and threatens some kind of invasion here. Queen c6 to c3, and then I'm threatening rook to d2. Okay, so he goes for the trade here. I could once again put my rook in front. So if I take, he will take with the queen. And I have a check here. King moves. I take a pawn. He takes a pawn, defending his b pawn. So that's not so great. If I move my rook here, the queen might go here and double up against my pawn, though. So takes check. King moves, and then I bring the pawn forward, defended by my queen. Let's try that. Yeah, his king moved away from the pawn. So queen and pawn against queen is pretty dangerous usually. He can't trade queens, for example, because this pawn will be too close and it will queen. So what does he do? He's got to back up with his queen, and then I can push the pawn forward. So a queen cannot easily defend against a queen and pawn unless there's another piece like the king in the neighborhood to backstop in case of trades. Okay, so he's got to check here. I run here. He can take a pawn, but he has no further check. So let's go ahead and push this pawn. I don't mind giving up these two pawns if I get a second queen. That's the main idea here. So he tries that. So if I take and he takes, and I push, and he gets a check here, I go here. He comes back for the check. Let's push first and see what he does. I'm noticing that queen here could check his king if that line were cleared by pawn takes pawn, say. Now that goes with check, I see. Still, it doesn't have he doesn't have a follow-up check that I see here. So I'm starting to feel pretty good about this position. What can he try? He has to check from this square to drive my king back, and if he checks from this square, my king goes here, and then he can check from this square. So what should I do? That also stopped me from queening. That's pretty good. And he's attacking my pawn. So if I go here with my queen, he checks, I go here, he checks, I go back. Is there some, what's a good square for my queen to be on when he delivers that check? I want to be on this diagonal, maybe to look at that square, or here somewhere. I need to defend the pawn. Yeah, this is tricky. And let's see, checks to his king are available on this diagonal. But once he starts checking me, I can't really stop it. Say queen here, check, king there, check. You can go forward with the king. And then where's his next check? He can check along here. I can block with the king, the queen, and then he takes. I can block with the queen here somehow. So tricky. Yeah, I don't see how to avoid. Okay, what are all the squares that defend that pawn? Here, 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 and there. And the squares that I can reach that also defend the pawn and I don't get taken. Here, maybe. Threatens to queen and defends it. And check and check. I step out. I don't see any way to walk away from the checks. But I'm setting up so I have a check on his king and I have a threat of queening. And now here, can I go anywhere but back? If I go here, it's checks all along this file. Yeah, I want to get to where I can block with my queen or check. But I don't see it. So I'm going for the draw here. I don't see any way to avoid it. Game drawn. Okay, but it was a good game. Let's upload that and do a postmortem. See if there was a way for me to win it. See you guys later. Bye.